Feeling the weight of choice brings a new kind of silence, one filled with the hum of consequence. In that hum, a question forms, clearer and more urgent than any before. If every choice sends a ripple through the web, and if we are both a thread in that web and a conscious point of tension upon it, how then shall we choose? All of this, the self, the other, the spiral, the cosmos, is fundamentally interconnected. Then, ethics can no longer be seen as a list of arbitrary rules handed down from a disconnected authority. They become something else entirely, the operating principles of systemic health. They are the guidelines for tending the garden of reality, of which we are both cultivator and crop. This episode is an attempt to articulate a core principle that emerges from this understanding. Some call it a creed, others a rede. I think of it as the wizard's code, a foundational commitment to choosing paths that minimize harm to the self and the whole. This is not a passive commandment to be nice. It is the active daily practice of fierce, intelligent compassion. It understands that sometimes the choice that minimizes harm overall is not the one that avoids all conflict. It may require the friction of a difficult truth to prevent a greater life from taking root. It may demand the temporary pain of setting a boundary to stop a chronic pattern of violation. It might involve the conscious, sorrowful acceptance of causing a small hurt to avert a catastrophic one. The magic lies in navigating these complex moral landscapes without a simplistic, one-size-fits-all rulebook, using instead the inner compass calibrated to a single question: what serves the enduring health, balance, and evolution of this spiral? This code finds echoes in the distilled wisdom of many paths. The Wiccan rede offers its famous elegant phrase, "And it harm none. Do what ye will." This is often misread as a permissive, do whatever you want as long as no one gets hurt. Its deeper interpretation, rooted in the understanding of interconnectedness, is far more profound. "And it harm none" is the governing clause. Do what ye will is not about childish whim, but about aligning one's will, true will in some traditions, with the fundamental flow of nature and the good of the whole. It implies that if your will is truly aligned, it will, by its nature, harm none. The rede is a test, a mirror. If your intended action harms, it is a sign your will is out of alignment with the spiral's health. This principle of non-harming, Ahimsa, is the Sanskrit tradition, is the first and foundational yama, ethical restraint. Ahimsa is more than non-violence in action. It is non-harming in thought, word, and deed. The sutras state that when non-harming is firmly established, all enmity ceases in the practitioner's presence. This suggests that ethical alignment isn't just a personal choice. It radiates a field of influence, changing the very quality of the space one occupies. It becomes a protective and harmonizing magic. Yet, the masters of old knew that a rigid, literal interpretation of harm none could paralyze a seeker in the face of life's necessary complexities. They planted the seeds of a more nuanced wisdom within their stories, showing that the highest ethics are contextual and require discernment, not dogma. The Bhagavad Gita presents the ultimate ethical dilemma. Arjuna, a warrior of supreme skill, is commanded to fight a righteous war, dharma yuddha, against an army containing his own teachers and family. His impulse is to practice a literal personal ahimsa, to lay down his arms to avoid killing his own kin. Krishna guides him to a more complex understanding. He explains that Arjuna's, his own essential duty as a protector of justice, requires him to fight. To abandon his post out of a personal, sentimental aversion to violence would cause greater harm. It would allow injustice to prevail and unravel the cosmic order, dharma. This lesson is that sometimes the action that looks violent on the surface may be in service of preventing a greater systemic violence. The Wizard's Code is not pacifism at all cost. It is the courage to engage in necessary conscience friction for the sake of a larger balance. The Jain tradition takes the principle of Ahimsa to one of its most rigorous logical conclusions, emphasizing microscopic care in all action to avoid harming even the smallest life forms. This extreme sensitivity cultivates a state of hyper-awareness and reverence for all consciousness. While the practical implementation may differ, the underlying magical principle is the same. The attitude of relentless, gentle care itself becomes a transformative force, shaping the practitioner's consciousness and, by extension, their interaction with reality. In the Zen tradition, ethical action is not derived from rules but from the state of mindfulness and the direct perception of interconnectedness. A master acts spontaneously from this state of unity. There is a famous story of a Zen monk who, upon seeing a scorpion drowning, repeatedly picks it up and is repeatedly stung. When questioned, he says, "It is the scorpion's nature to sting. It is my nature to save." His action is not calculated from a rulebook. It is an uncompromised, instantaneous expression of his inherent compassionate nature. The code has been internalized to the point of becoming instinct. This is the heart of the Wizard's Code, the internalization of the compass. We move from asking, "Is this against the rules?" to asking a series of deeper questions that reflect our understanding of the web. Does this action come from a place of fear or love? Does it increase the amount of understanding or suffering in the system? Does it acknowledge interconnection or enforce separation? Am I acting from a small reactive self or from my observer self that sees the larger pattern? This code makes life more morally demanding, not less. It removes the easy outsourcing of our choices to an external authority. It places the burden of discernment squarely on our own shoulders. Informed by our growing awareness of the spiral, we become responsible for understanding the ripples of our actions with as much clarity as we can muster. The magic of living by this code is that it aligns our personal power with a transpersonal purpose. Our energy is no longer spent on internal conflict between what we want and what we should do. Instead, our will, our creative magical will, is channeled toward the coherence. We become a node in the web that actively repairs, strengthens, and beautifies the connections around it. Our power becomes responsible, and in that responsibility, it finds its true potency and its rightful place in the endless, evolving turn of the spiral.